Fernando Alonso pulled off a sensational performance, but Saturday in Montreal was all about Max Verstappen. Torrid conditions in wet weather in a soaked Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, but the Red Bull driver was able to pull off another sensational outing and take pole in Montreal. I'm Ollie Wilson for GPFans, and this is how Saturday qualifying went down for the Canadian Grand Prix. So Q1 kicked off with a lot of standing water on track, and everyone was wondering how FP3's results would set the tone for the standings in qualifying. Large fuel loads and no stopping was the order of the session, as full wets did their best to try and clear the sodden surface. 7 minutes to go and a dry line was starting to appear, and times were starting to tumble on a clustered track. Pierre Gasly, who impressed this weekend, would fail to get out of the bottom 5 in the opening part of qualifying, with Nicholas Latifi at his home Grand Prix following suit, along with Yuki Tsunoda, who would already be starting from the back due to an engine change, and the two Aston Martins surprisingly out after their very impressive F3 performance earlier on in the day in the wet, with Sebastian Vettel particularly frustrated with his car's ability on track. Inters or wets was the calls that teams had to make to start Q2, with the Alpines on the slicker tyres, Max Verstappen on the wets, and a full mix in the field to start the session. The Inters were problematic, with Alex Albon and Sergio Perez both sliding off the circuit, the latter at turn 3 bringing out the red flag and going out of the session with 9 minutes to go, disappointing for Red Bull. At the restart, dry patches were appearing on the tarmac and times were coming down quickly, but not for Lando Norris, engine problems causing a real headache for the McLaren driver, taking him out of the session, along with Charles Leclerc, who was always starting from the back row anyway after his engine change for the Scuderia driver, Alex Albon and Valtteri Bottas also dropping out of Q3. It was Inters all round for the start of the top 10 shootout, with Max Verstappen going over a second faster than his nearest rival on the opening runs. The track was only getting faster, however, as Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso and Mick Schumacher in the Haas started to close the gap, but could never catch the Dutchman. 4 minutes to go in Q3, and George Russell decided to brave it on the slicks for the final part of the session. But doing so was perhaps a little too dangerous. It didn't pay off, as going into turn 1 of his first fast run, the Mercedes driver went sliding off into the barriers, clipping his rear wing and costing his last few attempts of qualifying. Sliding also cost Carlos Sainz pole, or at least a front row shot, as he got squiffy out of the final chicane, losing grip on his run to the start-finish line, before being beaten moments later by Fernando Alonso in the Alpine to second on the grid, with a stellar final run for the elder statesman in Q3. But the day was dominated by Verstappen, over half a second ahead of Alonso in second, with Carlos Sainz third and Lewis Hamilton fourth, and the two Haas drivers of Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher finishing qualifying 5th and 6th. Esteban Ocon was 7th, the not-so-slick George Russell will line up 8th on the grid, with Danny Ricciardo and a first top 10 run for Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo, 9th and 10th respectively. Speaking after qualifying, Max Verstappen had to say, "I think today with the tricky conditions we stay calm, we didn't make mistakes and we had the right calls in Q3, so of course super happy with that, to get pole position here and also to be back in Montreal. It's been a while and it's great to see all the fans." As for the wily old fox on the grid, Fernando Alonso, well, he had plenty of love from the supporters in the grandstands after what he called an unbelievable weekend for the Alpine team, adding, "We've been competitive from free practice, which normally we are on Friday, but then on Saturday we seem to lose a little bit of pace. But thanks to the wet conditions today, the car was mega. I was so comfortable driving this car, and I think the fans also pushed me to make an extra push." So Alonso elated with his performance on Saturday. What will that do to the race, though? Dry conditions expected in Montreal for Sunday's action, and who will be, of course, on the top 3 spots on the podium at the end of Sunday evening. Let us know in the comments section below. As always, join in the discussion on our Discord server with a link in the description of this video, and of course follow all of the action throughout Sunday's race day on gpfans.com and GPFans Global on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, and hit subscribe while you're here as well to follow us here on the YouTube channel.